Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the At the Water's Edge podcast, where we look for insights beyond the headlines to take a practitioner's view on national security and geopolitics. It's the 17th of December, 2025. Let's get started. Now, today's topic is one that is near and dear to my heart and absolutely critical to our long-term national security. And it's how do we, as a society, support veterans when they transition from military to civilian life? It is hard to overstate the damage that was done to the veteran community, to the readiness of our active duty military force, and to the moral fabric of America long term by how Vietnam veterans were treated when they came home from that war. Now you can compare that to the way veterans are treated today, coming home from the global war on terror. Night and day difference, complete turnaround. We have made so much progress in this area. It's remarkable. And that's from, leadership on the service side, leadership on the civilian side, the genuine love and support of the American public, the American people towards their veterans. But there's still gaps in our approach. And people fall through them with, at times, tragic consequence. So, incredibly excited to be talking about this issue today, and our guest could not be more perfect to discuss it. Our guest today is the CEO of the Wounded Warrior Project, retired Lieutenant General Walt Piatt. Now, the Wounded Warrior Project is arguably the most well-known veteran service organization that came out of the global war on terror. They were a pioneer in how veteran service organizations approached supporting service members when they got home from combat, dealing with injuries, integrating back into civilian life. Now, our guest, Walter, not only CEO of the Wounded Warrior Project, but has a long and distinguished career in service himself. He held almost every rank in the Army, from private up to 3-star general. Not a lot of folks can say that. A little over 4 decades in uniform, during which time his assignments included command of the Joint Multinational Training Command in Germany, being the Deputy Commanding General, United States Army Europe, Commanding General of the 10th Mountain Division at Fort Drum, best division of the United States Army. I don't care what anyone tells you. Yeah, that's right. I said it. I said it 82nd. I see you. 10th Mountain Division, climb to glory, best division out there. Multiple deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. Truly someone who has a deep knowledge and appreciation of the cost of service and what it means to help our veterans come home. Very excited to sit down with him and talk to him about this. We're going to go to a quick commercial plug from another podcast on the Work to Find Network, and then straight to our conversation with retired Lieutenant General Walt Piatt, CEO of the Wounded Warrior Project.
What happens when employees behave badly? Boy, we could do an entire TV show, maybe a Netflix special on that. Well, Ryan and I sat down and recorded episodes for FAMA, and we asked practitioners, give us your most outrageous story. The sales leader that brings cocaine to work, whatever. Just bring us the outrageous, and it is funny. So if you need a laugh, which we all do from time to time, search for Workplace Misconduct wherever you get your podcast, and you'll find it. And trust me, you will laugh and cry, but you'll definitely laugh. All right. Thank you.
The audience was much larger.
Well, you did well.
Thank you. Very kind. But now that you're here, hey, it's already been a pleasure talking to you. But could you introduce yourself real quick for the audience in your own words?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Walt Piatt. I'm with Wounded Warrior Project. I'm an Army veteran, retired after 42 years in the Army. I enlisted when I was 17, served my entire adult life in the Army. And I love it. And now coming to Wounded Warrior Project, it feels like I've come home to family, because now I get to give back to the young men and women who do so much for our country. And, I'm married now and with 2 children and 3 grandchildren. So
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you on. And I saw you light up when you said the grandchildren. I know when my parents come over to see our kids, it's really the only reason they talk to us now is just to hang out with the grandkids.
Yeah. So, they're wonderful. When you see, everybody thinks grandchildren are like, oh, you get to have kids and then you get to give them back. And that's the fun part. But I'll tell you, the real joy is watching your baby have a baby. Like our baby girl, I always call my princess, and then see her as a mother and a devoted mother, caring and giving. It's just the whole cycle of life. You feel like of all the things you've done in life, that's probably our greatest accomplishment. Is just awesome. Raising two adults and trying to figure it out. They were born in Panama when we were in the Army, and raised them mostly at Fort Drum, New York, a lot of times, and just to see them blossom into just adults that are thriving in the society, it means a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're at the Wounded Warrior Project now. How long have you been there?
A little over a year and a half. So I started in March of 24. I retired March 1st, and then started on March 18th in 2024. So coming up on 2 years soon, but it's a joy. It feels like I've been here forever, and then it also feels like I've only been here like 5 days. It's just a wonderful organization filled with just, really, really nice people that want to give and want to, they have such purpose. And Wounded Warrior Project, it's a great organization, and I know people say that about all their organizations, but it was started back in 2003 when a wounded Marine himself, who was wounded in Somalia, he understood what it was like to wake up in a hospital bed at Walter Reed with an embarrassing hospital gown on that shows off your backside, not something Marines like to do, and but to be all alone, to leave your cohort, that unit, all those friends, everyone that you're so tight with, and then to be totally alone. And so he started stuffing backpacks in his basement and delivering them to Walter Reed. And, it had a pair of shorts, a sweatshirt, phone card, CD player. And he would give these backpacks to every wounded warrior that was coming through Walter Reed. But not just the backpack that meant that they weren't alone, but he made a promise. And he said, we're going to be there for you no matter what. And for almost 22 years now, Wounded Warrior Project has been there no matter what. So we have grown from stuffing backpacks, which we still do today in Launchstool and Walter Reed, to now having 18 programs that are life-saving and life-changing programs to help warriors, really find a new path in life after their life has been impacted by war and military service, and to try to find that new path in life of hope and renewed purpose. And it's what we do. And it's great work. It's not just about, the simple things of transitioning, which I know all too well. It's about trying to find that purpose again. And we do it through connection and finding purpose. And once you get that, you're really off to the races. But without it, sadly, really bad things can happen to our veterans, which it happens sadly every day, where people, their lives spiral into despair. They feel alone, they're isolated, and it continues to grow in isolation until, they either don't cry out for help or someone is not there to help them. And, I'm committed to keep that promise that we made 22 years ago, but more importantly, keep the promise no matter what, and bring every warrior home, really home, mind, body, and soul, not just back. I mean, you know what it's like. You come back from a deployment, you just come back. You don't truly come home. That's a different process altogether. And we're committed to doing that, because I think our country looks at it. You come back and it thinks, oh, it's great. You're no longer in danger. Now it should be easy for you because you faced the difficult challenges in Afghanistan or Iraq or Syria or wherever. It should be easy, but it's not. And I remind people, it shouldn't be harder to come home from war than it is to go. But it is. And we need to be there for them to help them home, bring them home, mind, body, and soul. So that was a lot there, I know, but it's what we do. And it's exciting to be part of an organization that all we do is give back and try to help each veteran. Each one is different, and try to help them bring them all home.
Yeah, no, what you said there too, that is the most difficult thing to explain to people when you are trying to come home. And I know for me, I got back from Afghanistan, and of course, I'm going to the medical board process, so I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm stuck with that unit for the next year while I go through that process. But everyone I was deployed with rotated to their next assignment. Like, we got back summer rotations, so all of a sudden, like, I'm still in the Army, but everyone I just deployed with, went to train up with, the guys I went to the Q course with, they're all gone. So it's same green suits, but different faces. And then you leave that, and I go to upstate New York, and, I'm lucky. I don't have, like, I have to have myself together because I've got a wife and I'm now a new father. And I was fortunate. I came home. My wife was still here. Not all guys come home to that situation for a variety of reasons. So there are definitely times where I was like, why am I even doing this? Like, what's the point? But I don't have an excuse because I got a family I got to take care of and figure this out. But without that or some type of driver, it really is easy for guys who even physically look fine and they got a job and they seem like they're doing okay. I can't tell you how many folks that I served with, deployed with, who've since gotten out and they've gone off the rails in one way or the other.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, you served in 187 Infantry. I don't know of any battalion that's been deployed more in this war since 9/11 than that battalion, and probably since before that even. But if you look at it, like I always tell people, like if you look back at World War II, the greatest generation, we had a complete surrender in both theaters, and people came home. We demobilized millions of veterans almost overnight, and we helped them get a job. We helped them get a house. We helped them with education. But then Dad never talked about the war for 60 years. That's coming back. That's not coming home. And they lived lives because they were just tough people, but they weren't really connected perhaps to their family where they should have been. And too often maybe their children were like, "Hey, leave Dad alone when he's in that mood, or do whatever." And they had to work around it and didn't really have the family experience. And you think about it, these veterans who fought so hard, like you did, to protect this great country. They should be able to enjoy it, right? They should be able to come home and be leaders in society and not be seen as a burden to society, or worse, a threat to society. Sometimes our veterans are seen as just, messed up individuals. No, they're brilliant people. They did so much, but it's hard to come off that fast moving train and then come back and then to try to reintegrate into society when you were, you were exposed to so much.
Yeah. What do you think? We just talked about a big issue. Do you think that finding connection in society is the biggest issue that veterans face even today coming home? Or are there other challenges that are still out there? Because it seems like, as someone who, served through the global war on terror and I got out at the very tail end of it, the level of support that's available for veterans today, 10x what it was in 2001 when all this started. I am so grateful that I transitioned in 2022 and not, 2002. So happy. It was still a challenge, but there's so much more stuff out there. But where do you think the biggest gaps in helping veterans transition is today?
I think it really comes down to finding purpose. I think we as we try to transition our veterans, we talk about them, either going back to college or getting a job, and they get focused on that, and they don't understand what is their purpose? What do they want to do? And when they take the uniform off and they leave their friends and their colleagues, they feel like they're away from their family. It's like stepping out of the family for the first time. And whether you serve 4 years or 42 years, in my case, it's still your family. It was a tight-knit group. And you can get into society, you can get a job. And I've had many, business owners say, yeah, we want to hire veterans, until we did. And then we hired them and we realized they were really somewhere else. Their minds weren't really there. They weren't tied to what they wanted to do. So it's getting that connection and then finding that purpose and realizing that, you're part of this great society. You're not different. You just served in uniform and now you're coming back to a grateful nation. And it's hard. It's just, it's difficult. It's hard to explain unless you've done it and you understand it. There's so many wraparound support services out there. And we're one of them, what we want to do is, doctors, nurses, they're going to save your life in the United States. Best medical care in the world, obviously, and best military medical care in the world. But they can't give you your life back, and sometimes in the course of service, a young man or woman, they have to accept the end of the life they thought they were going to have to embrace a life they didn't think they were going to have. And that's a hard transition. So especially for someone who's been injured, ill, or wounded in the course of their military service, they had dreams and aspirations, maybe to be the sergeant major of the Army or the chief of staff of the Army, or get out of the Army and be a football player for the National Football League, or go to Penn State and play football or something. And, you met them. That we all have these dreams. And then all of a sudden, something happens. And what we do at Wounded Warrior Project is help find that new path in life of hope and renewed purpose. And I think even if you feel like you're not wounded or ill or injured and you're getting out on your own and you feel it, but you're still impacted by that military service. You were exposed to things that were difficult. You may have seen things in the course of your deployments, whether it was Bosnia, Kosovo, or Afghanistan. You were exposed to things that were very different, and it impacted you or stuck to you in certain ways. And you've got to be able to process that and know that it's what you had to do as a warrior. It's not really who you are. You're still this person inside. And to come back to that and reconnect with society, it's a different journey than just finding a job, learning how to write a resume. And I think we focus too much on that, and we don't focus enough on really helping you find yourself and what is it you really want to do. And just for me in general, 42 years in, the hardest thing I had to do with transition was just fill out my VA disability claim. I would have rather had to do oral comps at Harvard for a PhD than fill out that paperwork. It was hard. And I didn't even know that Wounded Warrior Project does that. It's one of the signature programs we do. It's like we help people do that for free. All our programs are free because we have a grateful nation that donates their hard-earned money so we can help warriors transition. But just that alone really helps a warrior connect. Like, hey, you're not alone. This is a difficult process just to fill this out. We can help you through it. And then by doing that, they feel connected and they feel like, oh, somebody understands me. Somebody's been through what I've been through, and somebody's trying to help me not just find a job, not just fill out my VA disability, not just go to college, but help me be me and reintegrate back into society. That's a difficult journey, and it takes connection, and it takes people who've been through it and understand what you're going through to help you do it.
Yeah, no, that's well said. Yeah, the experience of filling out VA paperwork is mind-numbingly painful. Like, that was just awful.
Yeah.
I remember, I was going to apply for some stuff too that I couldn't apply for until after I left, but I had the paperwork ready to go. I filed it as soon as I exited service. It still took 2 years. And the only thing that got it unstuck was I happened to bump into somebody who worked for Chuck Schumer. And when I couldn't get a tracking number or an answer from the Army or the VA for where my stuff was, I said, hey, dude, you work for Chuck Schumer. Could you guys write a letter to the Army and the VA, and ask them where this stuff is? 2 weeks later, I had a check.
Oh, that's good.
But not everyone gets lucky and bumps into that guy. It's so difficult. Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
What is it about the bureaucracy in the U.S. government that makes it so challenging for veterans to access services? And there's a corollary here too, where because it's so challenging to access it, the services you receive doesn't seem like it's primarily driven by what the veteran happens to need. It seems to be primarily driven by how well they can navigate the bureaucracy. And anytime you have that set up, you also create rampant opportunities for abuse and corruption. And, there's the somewhat famous series of articles in the Washington Post talking about fraud, waste, and abuse in the disability system. I certainly take issue with a lot of what they said, but those narratives are out there. Why is it after 20 years of the global war on terror, you think that with wonderful organizations like Wounded Warrior Project, and I work for the CARE Coalition, and there's so many other ones, why is it that our own government can't help solve some of these problems and get out of their own way?
Yeah, well, I think it's really the size. I think it's just a big problem, and it's a big organization. I'm a fan of the VA. I've met many VA secretaries, and it's not, and they all of them, everyone that works there wants to help veterans. They're kind, compassionate people, but it's a big machine. It's like working in the Pentagon. It's easy to make fun of the Pentagon when you're not in there, but when I spent so much time in the Pentagon, and I'll relate it to that, what I found was, you're no longer the smartest person in the room. Like maybe when you're an infantry captain, and you're leading your company. In the Pentagon, you're surrounded by thousands of talented, super uber intelligent, passionate, patriotic people, but it's a big problem, and everything in the world depends on the United States, and everything in the world depends on the United States military. We're everywhere doing everything, and I've got to see that firsthand. And it's easy to criticize the speed, but it's really the size and the magnitude of everything that the Veterans Affairs is responsible for. It's one of our biggest medical enterprises in the country. And what they need is help. And we're small. Wounded Warrior Project is small compared to the VA, but we've learned to navigate that, and we have a great relationship with them, and they appreciate our work that we do to show them how to better improve policies, how to better expedite claims. And I think it just right now, it requires that assistance from many veteran support organizations and nonprofits to help veterans navigate that. Sadly, I mean, I wish it didn't require that, honestly, but I haven't found people up there. It's not the bureaucrat that's just saying, no, this doesn't apply. I find people at the VA, they want to get to yes because they understand what you've done, you're entitled to. But they need this help, and the veteran applying doesn't know anything about it because we have no idea what's going on. But that's why I've seen the connection that we can make. VFW does it as well. A lot of people really understand how to do it. So I think too, and I also think since 9/11, the VA has gotten much better. Claims are processed so much faster. I know it's not perfect, but when you compare the sheer numbers and what they've had to do since 9/11, I mean, think 20-some years of war, the amount, toxic exposure, all these things that we've done with the PACT Act, and all these things that have come forward now have improved the system, not perfect by any stretch. And it's gotten bigger, so therefore it is subject to criticism, and it could be right for someone to trying to cheat the system or go around it. But I think the sheer numbers, I think, are what the VA is helping our veterans get what they're entitled to. This is not a charity for them. This is what they did. They served. They were injured in the course of that service in many, many different ways. We sent them to places that exposed them to things that a human being shouldn't be exposed to. And they did it. They did it without question. So therefore, now our country is trying to give you back the promise they made to our veterans. Like, hey, we're going to be here for you when you come back. Not perfect. And I acknowledge, the people that criticize that say that it's ripe for corruption. But I think in a broad sense, they've done so much for so many. And that's a good part. But I know you're always going to have a small percentage that may be. And, you always have someone trying to beat a system or fraud a system. And I think all of us are subject to that. And we have to have good measures in place to make sure that doesn't happen, because it takes away from the men and women that truly deserve it. And what I've seen is the men and women now getting the benefits they deserve. And in the course of just my short time being here, I've seen many, even from our Vietnam generation, even from Korea War, that never got their benefits filed correctly because they just gave up. They just gave up like, hey, this is too hard. I don't want to do it. And we find them and then we help them. And, again, this is not a charity. This is not, something we're giving to you because you can't do it. This is something we're giving to you because what you did for this nation. And so it is an entitlement that I hope, it comes, someday it becomes perfect. And I hope someday you can't, fraud the system. And I hope someday you don't need organizations like Wounded Warrior Project to help veterans do it. But until that day comes, I think in many ways we help keep the system honest. But I do think it's just the sheer size. I applaud people that work in the VA because I remind myself of this all the time, that every problem the VA is facing, like every claim, every challenge that people criticize them for, the problems started when the person was in uniform. And if I remind myself that all the time, like the reason the VA is trying to help these people is because they served for many years or just a few years in uniform. They probably served in combat or very dangerous places around the world. And our country is trying to help them get what they're entitled to because of what they did for the country, that they helped protect. And this is their country's way of saying thank you. So not perfect, but I applaud how they've improved over the years. And I see improvements, every couple months we see them trying to always improve their systems. We met with Secretary Collins several times, and he's just trying to get to speed of access to care. That's the next one. Community care. When a warrior or a veteran is suffering from a mental or brain health issue, they got to get care right away. And if they're at the point where they're actually having suicide ideations, they can't wait for 3 weeks or 6 months. They've got to get care. That's the next one we're trying to really tackle, and access to gender specific healthcare, especially for our women veterans. What I find is in Congress and in the VA, despite what party, they want to know what the issues our veterans are facing. They listen and they want to help pass legislation or help improve policies to get the care faster without that bureaucracy. But it's not perfect, but I spend a lot of time trying to help make it better.
Gotcha. What do you think the end of the global war on terror, the impact of the end of the global war on terror is going to have with the types of needs and services that veterans both need and then also have access to? Because, an organization like your own came out of the global war on terror. It's funded by donors who really cared about those troops deploying. Do you see signs that donor support for organizations like the Wounded Warrior Project might dry up now that GWAT's over and we're transitioning to this era of great power competition? How do you think that's going to impact the overall VSO, Veteran Service Organization ecosystem out there? Because even when we're not in a time of war, I mean, I know from personal experience, most stuff that's wrong with me, almost all of it, not actually related to Afghanistan. Afghanistan made it worse, but even without that, like everyone I know from 187 Infantry, even the guys who never deployed, you don't spend a decade in the infantry and walk out without some boo-boos, some serious boo-boos, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
And they might not be bothering you when you're 35, but Lord knows when you're 55, it's going to be an issue. So how do you?
And when you're 64, it's a really big issue. Let me tell you, it's a lot of time. You're jumping out of airplanes, you're carrying a big rucksack. Military service is hard, and it's hard for a reason, right? Because we got to protect this country. Yes, I think there's a lot there. I think it's a logical question because when the war's over, I've had many people say, the war's over. Why do we need Wounded Warrior Project? That's a logical question for an American citizen to ask. But I also tell them, one, the war is not really over. We're still globally deployed. Our military, probably 270,000 any given day all around the world, keeping the world free, keeping the global economy working in places where we don't even tell you where we are. That's what our military does. I mean, you know that. I mean, so I don't think military commitment is over. I also think there's probably not going to be this, I hope not, that there's probably not going to be a great big world war again where we're using massive weapons against country to country. Hopefully we can see that that's probably not the right thing to do for humanity. So that if big wars are impossible, this is my own assessment, that means we're just going to have small wars. And in my experience, small wars are kind of unwinnable. They're just, you get states of, stability. We work and people think, well, you didn't win the war. And I'm probably 0 for 6 in my time in the military. But, we did good. The military, without the U.S. military, a lot of bad things would have happened. But also tell people that war may be over. We may have come out of Afghanistan. We may be coming out, more and more from Iraq and Syria. And it may not be a kinetic war anymore. But war's not the only fight, and war is not the only place we take casualties. And when you come home, it's a different fight, and it's a different war. And many of our veterans who are bravest and the toughest men and women we've seen under fire can't win the last fight at home. And too many of them take their lives. Anywhere 15 to 22 veterans a day take their life. I met a spouse a few months ago at an event, and she was, we were doing a running event, and she was running in honor of her husband. And I said, tell me about him. And she said, well, he took his own life about 4 months ago. And he was 20 years, Special Forces. So think about the fights and the challenges and the things that he had seen in the course of his service and that he overcame, major challenges, helped people through the most difficult times, and then couldn't win the last fight at home. And to me, we can't give up until we bring them all home, mind, body, and soul. That's why I said this fight's never over. I want to be here so that they can live a whole life, not just come back and, like I said, get a job, get some education, but really be there to enjoy your family, not in a basement, isolating, playing video games, probably smoking marijuana. You don't want to talk to the people that love you the most. You start to isolate. Then you lose your job. Then you lose your wife or family or husband. and then you lose your home, and then we find you under a bridge with a bottle or a gun in your mouth. And that's not where a veteran's course of service should end. But that war is big because we're taking more casualties here at home through suicide than we did in Afghanistan and Iraq combined. And it shouldn't be that way. I mean, these are brilliant men and women like you've served with. I mean, 187 Infantry, that's like, that's the best of the best. And to the top. Yeah. And you just see these folks, and they should be able to. I remember coming back from our first deployment in Afghanistan, and 187 was the first battalion, conventional battalion to go. And
my platoon sergeant, when I got there in 2013, was in Operation Anaconda.
Yeah.
Like, he was there. I was like, dude, what the?
Yeah, I was there, and I remember the battalion sergeant major got wounded that day, and Sergeant Major Frank Grippy and Paul Cameron got the Silver Star that day. What American heroes? Nelson Kraft, the company commander. I mean, they were in. I mean, I don't think there was worse combat, anywhere, and it's terrible. But what they did was, they pushed forward against tremendous odds, and then when you see something as dangerous as that, and you get through it and you lead through it, but then you come back and you can't deal with what you were exposed to, and you take your own life in the barracks in 187, which happened to a few soldiers. Yeah. And then it really hit me like, hey, they're back. And you thought, I mean, logically you think you're out of danger, you should be happy and, enjoying life. But what I realized in my time in service is, war is the worst of humanity. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, the intentional killing of human beings by other human beings. But, it's also necessary because we're not going to give up our beautiful country and the freedoms we enjoy and to our allies and partners as well. But the strategic purpose of war should never mask the toll it takes on the young men and women asked to fight it. And we need to be there, and we need to understand that when you come from a great place like Connecticut or, upstate New York, and you're exposed to the worst of humanity, it sticks to you, and you either feel you can't come back because you either did something horrific, or you saw something horrific, or you couldn't prevent something horrible from happening. And you lost perhaps a friend or someone you admired or someone you feel responsible for, and you come back with survivor guilt. And therefore, the hardest part of surviving combat becomes living. I mean, think about it. I mean, it shouldn't be that. It should be how much life I have left to give and how much love I have left to give in life. But sadly, many of our peers and friends that have served with, they can't live with the fact that they survived and their friends didn't. And there's so many struggles, and it's not easy. There's not one thing we can do. You can't get them back home by just giving them a job or education. You got to get them on that new path in life, a purpose, so that they realize what they did is what they had to do. It's not who they are. Who they are is still inside. That wonderful person that signed up to do hard things is still there, and they're still capable of doing hard things. And I like to get them like I said, doctors and nurses save your life, but we help you give your life back. To get your life back, you just got to start doing hard things again. You got to start moving. You got to get, the path to healing is movement, and you got to be outside and uncomfortable, and good things start to happen. And that's a lot of our programs do that to help warriors, really find themselves again. And then once they find that purpose, they realize, wow, I got a lot more I can give. And because I did these hard things, I can actually do so many more things. And then that's when we really bring them home.
Yeah. I, speaking from personal experience, I didn't really feel like I started to settle into civilian life until I started doing jiu-jitsu. And it was just so great to be around guys who were just trying to like murder each other on the mats. but like that atmosphere, I was like, oh my God, like I didn't realize how much I missed that. And it's a whole bunch of guys that actually most of them are cops, some of them are vets, or they work in healthcare, and it's a bunch of middle-aged suburban dads mostly who suck at life. But God, like it's seriously, like it's the best possible therapy is just getting involved in something like that. And for me, it was jiu-jitsu. There's a place around the corner. It's been great. But I got to ask you, what are there concrete steps we can take to help veterans with mental health issues? Because I know it's 2021. We just got back from Afghanistan, and I'm in Special Forces. People ask, like, did you lose anyone on the trip? I'm like, nope, we didn't lose anyone in country. But Dan killed himself when we got home. I remember I'm sitting on my bed getting ready to go to my CMP exam for the VA, and I get the phone call saying, "Hey, you know Dan, right?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I know Dan. He was our company supply clerk while we were in Afghanistan. Came home, like I was at his promotion ceremony the week before. He wanted to go be a Green Beret. Talked about training up. We're getting ready. It's like, yeah, he turned a gun on himself last night. It's like, what the like." And this guy came home. His family was still there. Like, who knows the details? We'll never know. But family was still there. Just got promoted. He's got a goal in life, and we all missed it. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to be that guy. So, if Danny came to me and asked for help, I would have brought him to behavioral health, which is where the story goes next. I raised my hand, like, you know what? I'm going to go walk myself to behavioral health because this is all weird and it's wrong, and like I don't know what's going on. So I walked into behavioral health over at Fort Bragg, and I'm like, hey, I'm Scott, Captain Special Forces, and I think I need some help. They're like, we can't see you. I'm like, huh? Like, no, we can't see you here. I was like, okay, because they're like, well, stop, because you have your own behavioral health clinic over at 3rd Special Forces Group. I'm like, oh. So I get in my car, and I feel like if someone walks into a behavioral health clinic, like you should not send them away without talking to them first. So I drive over to the behavioral health clinic at 3rd Special Forces Group. Like, we can get you an appointment in 6 weeks. I show up for my appointment. I wait for 2 hours past the appointment start date. They come in on the lunch break and go, oh, you're still here? They see me then. We schedule follow-ups. My follow-ups get canceled with no explanation. I'm like, shit. Like, been in the Army for 10 years, just got back from Afghanistan. I'm an officer. I'm in Special Forces. Like, I pretty much can go anywhere on base I want and get access to whatever I need. And my friend just killed himself, and I can't talk to anybody. But also, if my friend had come to me and asked for help, I would have put him in my car and drove him over to behavioral health and walked him in. And I would have like checked the block in my head, like, this is what taking care of your buddy looks like. That's what would I've done. I'm like, okay. And if I had done that, clearly I wouldn't have helped him. And this is 2021 after 2 decades of everything we learned through GWAT. I was like, how can it still be this broken and you're still on active duty? And then this whole thing with the 22 Veterans Day post-service makes a lot more sense. I'm like, after 2 decades, how are we still so bad at this? Because you're right. Even when I was a lieutenant, we lost more people to suicide than training accidents, combat-related incidents, any of that stuff. So I'm just curious, what do you think? Why can't we get that part right yet? Because we're pretty good at a lot of other stuff. Like, we figured out operator syndrome and all these other crazy injuries, but like we still can't crack the code on that.
Yeah, I think, well, there's a lot of reasons. And, I've had so many instances. I've had one, it was like before I got out of the Army in 24, so it was like 2023. I'm sitting on my porch and reading a book, and I get a call from someone who got a call from some soldier, traced it all the way back to Alaska. A senior non-commissioned officer was trying to get help. He went to an off-post clinic, and they said they wanted to help him, but then it went back to on-post, said, you can't go there because you got to come back here. And he didn't want to go there because he was senior. And it's like, it took us like, oh my God, thank God somebody connected the dots and we were able to intervene. But I think that's one of the things is we need to just come to the conclusion, realize that we shouldn't wait for people to ask for help because they won't. Warriors they just don't ask for help and they won't take help. It's like kind of ingrained in all of us. It's like we were trained that way, right? We're trained to like always be tough and stand up for yourself. And that's why we're always surprised when a good friend, like your friend, takes his life and you're like, wow, this guy just seemed like he had it all going. I think we just need to realize this has to be part of all of our day-to-day training and awareness that when you do these things in the military, it's going to impact your mental health. It's just going to impact it. And you got to understand that we've got to take care of that side of it. So well before you get exposed to traumatic events, we should be helping you deal with the pressures and stress and to know and to recognize these things when they come about. So, but to answer your question, that we've in Wounded Warrior Project, we started 10 years ago a Warrior Care Network with 4 medical universities across the United States, and from UMass at home base in Boston to Rush in Chicago, Emory in Atlanta, and UCLA in California. And they studied on how we could take, lengthy treatments that would have you come in almost a course of a year and get it down to like manageable 2 weeks or 1 week, or how can we do it remotely? How can we get this accessible or get treatment reasonable to folks? And what we found in 10 years is it works, and they share their research and they share all these ideas, and we're getting to methods that actually are working for warriors. But the problem is it's too small. We can't scale it. You know, we can't get it out there so it's accessible everywhere. It's either requires a high touch or a clinical visit, which means you got to wait. Like, yeah, wait for 6 weeks. It's like any doctor appointment. Wait for 6 weeks. Well, no, they can't wait. I mean, they're having a challenge right now. So the biggest challenge is I think we're at a very critical point right now. We have found methods that work, and we're continuing to do more research on methods that will work even better, to include psychedelic assisted therapy that we're seeing so much movement now. We just joined the Wounded Warrior Project. We just joined the Valor Coalition, started by vets and other folks who have experienced. Many of them were Navy SEALs, saw the worst of combat, were medically retired because of things that happened to them in the course of their service, and then struggled. You know, these are some of our top performers in the United States military. I mean, this is like, you know, talk about like a high-performing Pro Bowl football team. These guys are better than that. You know that. I mean, you were special forces. You're one of them. So, and when they come out and they can't deal with this, that ought to tell us something. Like, hey, if we're going to put these brave men and women through that kind of crucible and make them do these type of strategic things every day and have the world dependent on them, we need to help them come back from it. We need to help them understand what they've been through. So it should be part of your daily therapy sessions, and not just wait till you're in crisis, because when you wait till you're in crisis, it's going to be too long. So there's a lot there, but I think the community is moving forward now to better understand it. I think the stigma is dead. I think we now know that because you're hard and you do hard things, it is hard on you. It is hard on you mentally and physically, and you need help getting through that. And nobody can get through that alone, and sucking it up or self-medicating is not the answer. So instead of waiting for someone to ask for help, we need to show, okay, you're special forces. You've been in 10 years. You've done this, this, and this. You need to have this as part of your medical treatment plan all the time. I remember coming back from Afghanistan after I was a battalion commander in the 25th Infantry Division, came back. We're doing our post-deployment survey at the time, kind of a new thing back then. And I answered honestly to all the questions. And, you know, because I did, there's ruffle in the medical clinic. All these doctors come in, you know, like ready to put me in a straight suit and lock me up. And I said, well, where did you think we were? They're like, well, you answered yes to all these questions, you know. And I said, well, where do you think we were? We were in combat for a year in eastern Afghanistan. And I said, if any one of those soldiers didn't say the same thing I did, they lied just so they can get out and get their 3-day pass, right? I mean, that's what we were trying to do. So we built a system that really didn't like understand what we were sending men and women to do. And we should have. We should have. So that's a broad answer, but specifically, we're going to continue to do more research on best treatment methods. So research continues, because there will be other methods. Not every method will work for every warrior, but there will be other methods that we should introduce. And I want to get it to where it's widely accessible. And if not, we can't do that alone. It's going to take the VA and the whole medical enterprise, but get it accessible so you don't have to see a trained clinician, you know, and wait 6 weeks. Get it accessible, and with the hope someday that, you know, we'll have alternative medicines to be perhaps even be over the counter, so that when you come back from deployments, you're learning to deal with the trauma that you faced, and be able to come through it and be able to recognize it so you don't spiral into disorder. So it's really the next step is, I think we're there close. Not all treatments are there, but I think once we get psychedelics and alternative medicines approved through the FDA, I think that's the next step. I don't know if it'll be 3 years or 5 years, but I think we've got lots of trials going on all over the world with, in our country. Americans for Ibogaine is one of them, backed by former Governor Perry from Texas. So we're seeing things that work. I think if you follow the science, you can get these medicines approved and get them, hopefully, my vision would be someday in the future, they would be over-the-counter medications that we can give to people because we know what they've been through. Many of them, though, do require a series of therapies. So instead of waiting for a warrior to say, hey, I need to see somebody, which is normally you're in a bad state before you come to that, we ought to make you see somebody. I mean, I did. I went through therapy before I got out of the military, but I probably waited too long. And it was so helpful to me. I mean, it was so helpful to me. And when I did my VA disability interview with the psychiatrist, you know, she's like, look, I only have 1 hour. I don't tell you what your diagnosis is. They're very, very professional on this thing. Mm-hmm. And she asked me the first question, Scott, she goes, what'd you do before the Army? And I'm like, well, I was in high school. And then after that, it went for 2.5 hours. She's crying, I'm crying. And she's like, do I need to prescribe you medicine? I'm like, no, I've learned to express this. And once you learn to, whatever it is that helps you, and I've had many things that are very therapeutic for me, then I think you get it. And I think that has to be part of the warrior ethos and culture from the time they join. We did a study when I was in to introduce mindfulness as early as basic training to help people understand that if you practice mindfulness, you can reduce stress, you can increase your attention, you can recognize, and you can help your brain. I call it push-ups for the brain. But we've got to be able to do that simultaneously and not wait for people to be in crisis before they get help, because too often you got to wait 6 weeks, as they told you, and that can't be. And if we help them along that line, we'll start to see things sooner, and we can get folks the help they need before it becomes desperate. I know that's a long answer, but it's a very passionate for me. You really pushed the button there, but that's what we got to crack. We've got to get it where every warrior, it's like mandatory. I mean, you're going to go qualify with your weapon. You got to go qualify with your brain too. We should make this part of American military culture, so that you're not left on your own accord to deal with it, soldier, right? I mean, just deal it, suck it up, right? How many, embrace the suck, all the things they told us. Well, yeah, you train us to do that, and eventually we kind of get overwhelmed by that, and it takes its toll. And then we go for help, and someone tells us, come back in 3 months, and we'll see you at 8 o'clock, and that's not the answer. So a lot more work to do, but we're not going to stop until we get it done. And I find the community, not just Wounded Warrior Project, the community out there, they all get it, because many of them are veterans themselves, and they're working to make this right for the generation that comes after us, not just the generation that served. We got to help them, but we got to do it for the generation that's serving now.
Well said. Now, you mentioned the community out there. There is a tremendous ecosystem of folks out there who support veterans. I've recently become aware of 1 million organizations I'd never heard of in the past month or so, which is awesome. But I'm getting cold calls from folks, and some of them are clearly scammers. And the Veteran Service Organization ecosystem, it's wonderful that it exists. It's a beautiful thing that says about America, that there's this natural inclination to step up and support veterans, and there's so much support out there. It's also incredibly unregulated. There's lots of organizations out there that are very disingenuous. Even Wounded Warrior Project back, 2014, 2015 timeframe came under some scrutiny for some of its accounting and spending practices. So is there a way to better police this space and ensure that when a veteran approaches a VSO, or a VSO approaches a veteran, and they're coming in from a position of authority, maybe they've already been integrated into the transition assistance program at their local installation, that we keep veterans from falling in with charlatans who pretend to help them and really just exploit them?
Yeah,
out there.
I think there is, but you're right, they're out there. I mean, there's some groups that will they'll hit you up to help you file your VA disability, and then they'll charge you money for it, like the first 2 months of disability if they get it. That's like a lawyer, like somebody following, the ambulance chaser lawyer, and it's sad. I tell people all the time, and I've known friends of mine that have a lot of experience actually use a service like that. I'm like, I want to punch those guys in the nose. Like, we have organizations that do it for free, and many of them do it. I mean, there are ways. It shouldn't be left up to the individual to have to go check on a 990 on an organization and look at their history and see how they're rated by Charity Navigator and see if they've got a high star rating and all that. I mean, that's the process now, and it is work. It is one way to validate a nonprofit to say that, okay, they're rated up as a charity that I can count on. That's the way now, but it's probably something that a warrior veteran is not going to do as an individual. Companies or people like doing backgrounds that know how to do it on organizations do. We try to convene like everyone in this space. And I still learn of young startups all the time that I don't know of. Every day you find someone and they're just passionate and they want to do the right thing. But you're right. There are those out there that just are trying to make a buck. And some of them try to make you think they're the actual organization that you think you're talking to, and they're not really that. And that's a sad state of our country that people would do that. because nonprofits we're charitable organizations. So we got kind, compassionate hearts. So we're not really looking for that kind of fraudulent imposter, but it's out there. I think the best way to do it, though, and one of the things that we're working on is to do more with active duty. I've talked to the chairman of Joint Staff last night at the event here, and I talked to Secretary Higseth about it too, that the VSO community can help the military with transitions, and we can do it a lot better and for free. Because I don't think the service it's not in their best nature to try to transition an active duty service member. They want you to stay in. They want you to stay in the fight, right? Mm-hmm. But if we vet them up front, and then you know where we are when we come on to an installation, because it's hit or miss. Each installation is a little bit different, and we're fighting our way in there. So we can say, look, we are a vetted organization, and here's your options that you have, and we can help you do it. We are registering more and more active duty members. We've done programs on Army installations. We started in Alaska when they had a high suicide rate with one of our programs called Project Odyssey. We got warriors outside, uncomfortable in cohort units, so they can talk about the mental challenges that they're going through, and they started to realize, whoa, this is actually good for me. And once we got more recognition, then people know, oh, okay, you're a trusted organization. The Veterans of Foreign Wars, American Legion, all these organizations, they're all different. But if we're given, I think, the right access to active duty, we can help active duty while they're still on active duty, whether they choose to retire after 20 or 30 years or just get out after 4 years. I think they'll know which organizations they can trust. It's a sad state that you got to do some background checking on folks. It's a sad state of affairs, but I would say more than not, most organizations are very good. And when you get in one, if it doesn't feel right, it isn't right. If someone's trying to charge you money, they're not right. Why would we do it? Donors, they give us hard-earned money, whether they give us $19 a month or they leave us something in their estate. They're giving us money because they know they benefited in life by living in America because America was free, and America is free because of the military. So they want to give back to help men and women, transition from military service, and it's their money; it's not ours. So we take that very seriously. Like every dime, when we have no money, and every dime we have is not ours. It was given to us so we can provide the most effective care for the men and women who defend in this country, and we must do it in the most effective, efficient way possible for our donors, who I call a grateful nation. But yes, beware. You should always beware. And when in doubt, talk to an organization that you can trust, whether it's Wounded Warrior Project or whether it's your own community services on an installation, and ask them. But I would say if anyone's asking you for money, that's an immediate red flag. Don't do it. Don't do it. Now, if they're, for us, anyone can register now. We're a post 9/11 organization. We were asked to do that from our Vietnam generation because they didn't want a generation lost like they were. So we focus on post 9/11. But after that, if you served post 9/11, you're eligible. If you're a family support member that your husband or son or daughter served, you're eligible. Sign up. Just come to us. That way you're part of the community. And when you find someone on the street that has a question, you can point them in the right direction to get the help they need. And even the VA is another good one. It's hard to talk to. It's big, but there are many ways to determine who's playing straight and sadly who's not.
Yeah. No, I know we're coming up close on time, but if there's a veteran out there listening to this, what would you want to tell them if they're having any type of issues? What advice would you give based on your years of service and your time with the Wounded Warrior Project?
Yeah, one, you're not alone. I mean, we all struggle. You're not alone. And go back to where you served, Navy, Air Force, Army, Special Forces, whatever it was. That connection's still there. All you got to do is take the first step. Come sign up with us at woundedwarriorproject.org or reach out to a friend and just ask them and know that you're not alone. Perhaps you're having a substance abuse issue. Perhaps you're having a marital problem. Perhaps you're just having financial issues. Whatever it is, or you just don't feel like you have purpose, connect. Once you connect with veterans, you're going to realize we all are struggle, but yet we're all very strong. And we may be wounded, we may be ill, we may be injured, but we're not done. We have so much to give, and you're such value. I tell everybody, you're so valuable. You know, what you've done for our country appreciates you. So when I talk to every veteran, I say always, thank you for your service. Your country owes you, and they want to pay back. They want you to come home, but you got to take that first step. And I tell everyone, it's normally not the person that's struggling that comes forward. It's normally someone who knows the person and doesn't know what to do. And they just look at them and say, wow, you know, Walt, Scott, man, they were just so tough. They were really good in the military. How am I going to tell him I think he needs help? No, tell them, you know, they'll probably really appreciate it. Like, hey, man, are you okay? What are you doing? What's been the most purposeful thing you did this week? And then when they start to light up about, oh, yeah, like you were talking about your wife. I mean, you lit up, you know, like I lit up with my grandchildren. And you're like, okay, are you going to be there for them? What are you doing to make sure that you're going to be there for them because they need you? Like, and you said it very well, that purpose is your family. I just tell them that, one, thank you for your service. There's help there. You're not alone. And don't be alone, because no one can do this alone. No one. None of us.
Well, I think that's an excellent sentiment to end on. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Walt. It was amazing talking with you. Really appreciate your time. And please come back on anytime.
Yeah, well, I will. Next time I expect to see a Jonas Brothers poster in your background. But thanks, Scott. Thanks for your service. And for everyone out there, the Wounded Warrior Project, we're going to keep the promise. You know, we're going to be there for every warrior no matter what. We'll bring every warrior home, mind, body, and soul. We're dedicated to that end. And that's what we're going to do, because they've done so much for all of us, like you have for our country. So thank you for your service, and stay warm up in Syracuse.
It's a losing battle, but we fight it every day.
Well, thanks, Scott. Really appreciate you.
Take care.